Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. So we saw that big pop yesterday after very tight consolidation. The big range was forming here, and it was very clear the bulls were gaining some momentum. We were just kind of all waiting for that big blowout, the big breakout, if you want to call it that. And we finally saw it. You can see in this candle here. This is the 1 hour chart, but looking at it live, it was pretty nice to finally see this big green candle growing. And we're seeing a little bit of pullback action here. I was actually scaling out early. I got out a little bit too early, but I was already in a couple of positions in some of the altcoins, and I had sent a message to my group right around here, right before the big breakouts. And I said, hey guys, it looks like it wants to break out here today. And my plan is to sell into strength. I like to sell in strength, not because I was looking at any sell signals, but I was already up on a couple of the alts, and I expected we'd see another big push and then a little bit of pause action. We're starting to see that in a little bit of the alts. Not necessarily sell signals, but certainly some profit taking is showing up here. And so the big question is, was that a breakout and the start of a new move? Or was that the top of the bounce, and we're going to start to see the end of that little bit of a rally and some pullback action? So I want to show a couple of points that I'm looking at here, a couple of charts to be watching here near term. Going out to the 4 hour chart here, a couple of areas that I was watching was this little zone here, and let me highlight that, between 6,900 and 7,200. Now that is a wide zone, and so that was my target. I said 6,900 would be the first target, and then 7,000. And then above that, I would expect to see a little bit of pause action. We're seeing that here, but the good news is we're still above the 10 EMA on this 4 hour. It's just a little bit of a normal pullback at this time, but that is expected following that strong rally. And a lot of that, yes, was short squeeze. If you look at the short interest chart, you can see there was a pretty big pullback as this is happening here, but some of the alts were already moving. They were kind of signaling that this breakout was coming. And so I was expecting for Bitcoin to catch up. But the reason I was looking at this as kind of the initial target on this bounce, if you remember my last video, I was talking about a potential bear flag that was forming on this daily. Let me clear some of these lines so it looks a little bit easier to see here. What I was looking at was this rising channel, and you can see we're starting to poke out the top of that here. And if you go wick to wick is really what I was looking at here. I was looking at a confluence of resistance points. First, that 7,200 down to about 6,900, as well as the top of that channel. And if we did some Fibonacci retracement analysis on this, this is also the 50% retracement zone. And so there was just a confluence of resistance levels here. Doesn't mean that that's the end of the rally, but that was really kind of the first target. And that was my plan, was to take some profits into that and then just wait to see if we get a secondary entry, a little bit of a pause, pullback, and then another leg higher. And so that'll be what I'm looking at. If it continues higher, then the next target up is going to be around 7,300 up to maybe even 7,500. But that little zone is going to be the next level that I'm watching if this upside rally continues in the near term. But a lot of the alts were really the place to be. They were continuing to outperform Bitcoin on the way up, which is great because they were already moving. We'll look at a few here real quick. Ontology just had this nice pattern over the weekend, made for a nice early entry going into the weekend, and was already up pretty good once the rally started. IOTA has been a big winner too. This one has just continued to rally, and that did bounce right into the 618, so I was scaling out of that a little bit into some of that. And you can see here on the 1 hour, the last several hours, it is starting to roll over, so there certainly is some profit taking showing up on some of these, but these have been some strong rallies already. Jumped in on that one over the weekend. You can see here, I mean, it went as high as 35% before you've seen some pullback. And so there is some pullback that is expected on many of these. If you go to the 4 hour charts and you see the RSI levels, it got pretty elevated on a lot of this recent move up. So which is why I'm a lot more cautious here. I'm not willing to really take some new entries here until we see some pause and see how deep these pullbacks go. But all in all, there's been some very strong names. If you look at VeChain, still continuing to move higher there. Binance is actually setting up the Binance Tether. Just continue to watch this one right now, see if it can hold on that 4 hour charts. But all in all, there's been some very strong moves. Yesterday, NEO was one of the big winners, had a very strong rally off the lows here in about an hour and a half, just gave a really strong move and still moving higher here. So not too bad all around. A lot of names continue to break resistance here, continue to move higher off of these patterns. But if Bitcoin pulls back here, that's going to be the big question, is how far do they pull back? You can see they're already starting to sell off in the short term, and that's because BTC is pulling back a little bit here. If we go back to the Coinbase chart, you can see this one's kind of rolling over here a little bit. This is a very short term time frame. But is that the end of the bounce, or is this the beginning of a new rally? And just because we're hitting this little bit of resistance zone right now, I'm going to take the cautious approach and take some profits off the table, and then wait for confirmation to the market to tell me that's going to continue higher, or that was it. And it could go either way here. We're bouncing right into resistance. One of the members of my group also alerted me that, hey, this is the bottom of the daily cloud on the Ichimoku trading system, which he follows. And so that's another data point there, just to keep in mind that this really is a key resistance level to be watching right now. But it could certainly continue higher in the near term. Technically, the daily chart has plenty of room to run if it wants to continue higher. The RSI is just now approaching that 60 mark, but I expect we're due for a little bit of a pause, maybe even a slight pullback here. And that would be healthy and could set up for another leg higher. So if it continues to pull in, near term, I'm watching the 10 EMA. It's just been tracking to that. So right now that's sitting right around 6,900. And if it continues lower, then that big place that it broke out from here yesterday is the place to be watching, around that 6,750 to 6,800, which was that big resistance zone that was finally cleared yesterday and on some strong volume. So that's what I'd be watching here. But it was just clear. I mean, the setup was there. It was really getting really tight, narrow. The bulls were starting to gain some traction, gain some momentum. And I was thinking, if I'm short here, I'd be really nervous. And sure enough, as soon as it broke through, you saw that short covering rally, and it kicked off fairly quickly. So that's going to be it for today, guys. I just want to point out one more name real quick. Ethereum continues to lag here. If you look at Ethereum dollar here, you can see had a pretty good move in sympathy with the rest of the market, but has not been one of the strongest names. Many of the other alts continue to look much better than Ethereum here near term. So just one to be cautious of. People ask me, is it alt season yet? Are we there? I'm watching this chart. Let me clear the volume here. I'm watching this chart because until this starts to tell me that Ethereum's going to start outperforming, my answer is it's not necessarily alt season per se, but we have absolutely seen some very strong moves in many of the alts, which is good. It's made for some good trading from that perspective, but is it a move that's going to continue? This is the chart to be watching. The good news is there is some bullish divergence showing up on Ethereum as this price continues lower, but it has not confirmed yet either, right? So it's just continuing to move higher. I'd be watching just kind of this little bit of a wedge that's starting to form here on this chart in the very near term. If it starts to break above this trend, that'd be good. But until then, I remain cautious just because this is a little bit of a bellwether for me, and Ethereum has absolutely been lagging on this recent move to the upside. Going back to the dollar chart here, you can see it's starting to turn the corner, no doubt, but has not been one of the stronger names. Many of the names are showing a lot more bullish action from that perspective. So just wanted to bring that quick update, guys. We have some positive momentum absolutely in the markets right now. Some encouragement to see the bulls fighting and pushing higher and higher, but a lot of that is short squeeze as well. And so let's see how this plays out over the next couple of days. I'm going to just take a pause here, let the market decide and tell me which way it wants to go. And most likely I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow, so look out for that. And as always, guys, I appreciate you being here, appreciate you watching. Until next time, take care.